You want the normal real estate training you've been told a million times? Make cold calls, knock on doors? Best be switching off now, because in this podcast we go out of the box using unknown tactics, primarily that the real estate industry's never heard of, in order to get you called in more often, convert those listings, and get more success without the painful cold calling. Listen up, we're in for a ride. This is Real Estate Renegades. All right, welcome to a really special edition of the Total Success podcast, or whatever the bloody hell this is called. As always, I'm your host, Glenn Twiddle, bringing you leading experts in their field, and possibly this was described to me as the most important money-making skill on the planet. And the way it was described to me back in the day was the art of writing compelling words on paper, right? So the art of using magical words, copywriting, if you will. But what I would say is that's now translated to words on things like this, on a video, on a Facebook Live, in whatever media it happens to be. The art of putting your words together in the right way. Those who can do it masterfully become rich beyond their wildest dreams. Those who do it pretty well, do pretty well. And those who can't communicate well with their words, either spoken or written, are forever up against some sort of, whatever the word is, handicap, I suppose. And we are talking today with the least handicapped person in the game, one of the greatest copywriters here in this country, in Australia, even internationally known as well. So, Steve Plummer, thanks for catching up, my man.
It's a great pleasure to be here, Glenn, and thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Oh, mate, well deserved, bud.
Thank you.
So for our viewers, if they see the setting, it's a bit different than our normal setting, because we are here today in a workshop where I've called the best copywriter I know to come and train my highest paying clients. Yep. So it's out of all the copywriters on the planet. I couldn't get Frank Kern and Dan Kennedy down from America. No. So when it comes to Aussies, mate, you're as good as they get, and you've been hired by the best people doing anything here in this country. But let's just give us the quick overview of what copywriting is, and maybe some of those folks you've worked for, because I do have some questions from my crew that I want to put to you. But what's the overview of copywriting and Steve Plummer's story?
Okay, so firstly, the short answer, copywriting is sales language. It's the language of sales. How do you use words to move a prospect from their position as a prospect into the position as a customer who's prepared to pay you money? You've got to get those foundations right. Often we think it's a really simple thing, but if you're going to be really good with your words, you have to know what you are doing, because it isn't just a thing off the top of your head that you can just, turn up and do it. You've got to put more thought into it than that.
Yeah. Well, I've known you for a better part of a decade now.
Yeah.
Tell us about the journey to wordsmith mastery. Yeah. Because did it just happen naturally? You know, because some people have said to me, surely you just say it, man. You just be you. I've heard Oprah even say, just be yourself. Well, what if being you and the words you would naturally use aren't the right words? But tell us about that journey of what you were before, and were you a natural that could just be yourself?
It's a really interesting question, because often if you put most people on the spot about just use your words, they'll go, there'll be some form of verbal diarrhea that they get caught on. And so you need to have those foundations. So, look, the really good thing in terms of copywriting and sales language is it is a learned skill. I spent the first 20 years of my career as a high school teacher. And people say to me, did you teach English? And yes, I did for a period of time, but I was also a head of faculty and a deputy principal. So they say to me, well, you're at an advantage because you had, that training as an English teacher, so you're good at English. And I've got to tell you, Glenn, that is complete and utter BS. In terms of sales language, copywriting, what you are taught in school, and I should know because I taught it, right? You're taught to convey information. You're not taught to write to sell. Yeah. And everyone thinks because, I wasn't good at English at school, therefore I can't be good at copywriting. Wow. And that is BS. I'm telling you, you can chuck out 80% of what we're taught at school.
I'm famous with these guys here. They'll know if you put a spell check on my emails that do sell, it would be an embarrassment.
As the folks will see, Glenn, today, when I deconstruct one of your sales messages...
How did your English teacher self stack up with that?
F! As these guys will see, it wasn't so much the language or the spelling and so forth. I transcripted one of your your verbal things. And my goodness, it is deep in terms of the psychology behind the words that you use.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
that's key.
That's probably, I've got to say, that would probably be unconscious competence.
Yes,
just
absolutely.
by like years of hanging out
Yes.
with yourself, with
Yes.
the best copywriters on the planet. Because I haven't mastered the art. That's why I called you in as a master of this art. But maybe some of it just rubbed off with folks like the aforementioned Dan Kennedy, Frank Kern, yourself, and all of those folks.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting you say that. I mean, one of the people say, well, how did you learn this? And, you know, you get all these guru fanboys that, no, that's my guy, that's my guy. You know,
Kern
that's
and
my
Kennedy
guy.
are two of mine, and you in this country as well.
Yeah, you know, but I learn from everyone, you know, and I try and be as broad and open-minded as possible in learning all of this stuff, because there is always more to learn and more to know. Yeah.
I wonder if, again, some of the resources I've just mentioned, Frank Kern, Dan Kennedy, what are some of the other folks that you would, you know, some of the epic, well, like there's, I've heard of the name Ogilvy and some of those classic guys. Are any of those guys that you would say better than others? I've certainly read, I think I've got to find his seminars and things. I've heard of I've always heard him described as the late great Gary Halbert and folks like that. But any of your particular favourites?
Those ones you've all mentioned. I do quite like Bob Bly as well.
Okay.
He lives in New Jersey in the US. He's written something like 80 or 90 books.
Right.
I mean, who does that? You know?
I've got one out, and that's enough for me.
You know, I mean, that guy is really good as well. I mean, but a lot of those really top US guys are you know, exceptional in what they do. And as you said, the late great Gary Halbert, you could do worse than just go online and Google the Gary Halbert letter and read that and look at the way he uses language, how he taps into the emotions of the market. I mean, and that's key, because, you know, we all know that people buy based on emotion. You know, I mean, you go and buy a car, you know, you want it to transport the kids, but you also want to show up the neighbour because I got a new car, right? That's one of your buying triggers. And the more, as human beings, we can understand that human beings buy things based on those emotional trigger points, then, you know, the better that we are at trying to sell to them, move them from that prospect to that customer.
It's interesting. When you mentioned the letter, the Gary Halbert letter, do you mean the one that he could literally mail to the phone book? The one selling the name crests?
No, it was his paid newsletter back in the day.
So the Gary Halbert newsletter. Yeah. Okay, understood. Because there's lots of free editions of that training.
Correct.
Online.
You can Google the Gary Halbert letter, go online and read all of them.
They all are. Yeah. Because
it's gold.
He was one of the guys that got famous for writing a letter that's very rare, that you could just mail to the phone book profitably.
Yes.
And that's very rare. Normally you have to segment your list so that you're writing to, like in this case, I've got my real estate crew here, so I can write and talk their language. Some of the things you've taught me is talk the language of the consumer. To be able to write a letter profitably to anyone, to the phone book, is a feat. And I've never heard it if it's been done since. I wanted to ask you something before we get to the formal questions. There's a fellow who uses his words to do it, not written, but words, called Ty Lopez. And Ty has a bit of a reputation in, you know, it's not always a glowing reputation. And I don't even know why, because what I saw Ty do is take a video version of a sales letter, and he just had it profitably able to make money to the point where the reason people don't like him is because they see him everywhere on YouTube, because he was able to do on YouTube, have a video that could be seen by anyone, anywhere, all over the world, and it be profitable and make money. And I think that's never happened since Gary Halbert. So Ty Lopez, using his words, was able to do something that literally no one's been able to do since Gary Halbert. But as I tell that story, have you ever looked at Ty's work that way, or do you even know who he is?
Look, I've heard of the name, but I don't know specifically what you're talking about. But what I will say, that is genius there, to be able to do that.
To the phone book, or in this case, today's phone book is to the YouTube general consumer.
Yeah.
You know, so unheard
Actually,
of.
just on that point, it's an interesting thing, Glenn. You say that, you know, that's now a YouTube thing. The key thing is that works because it's connecting to and selling to humans, right? But it's based on the foundations of good copywriting. And those foundations do not change. The media changes and has changed over time, but those foundations do not change.
Yeah, well, his that copy, it opened with, it was an aspirational thing, people aspiring to it. He goes, and this might be famous to some of your guys, you might even recognise him now more that I say the first words. He goes, here in my garage with my new Lamborghini, right? And that's the accent he has, right? I don't know if any of you guys have seen the Lamborghini guy. Here in my garage with the new Lamborghini. And he's saying, but you know what I like more than my new Lamborghini is, and he says it with this accent, is knowledge. I can't do his accent well. And then he goes to his bookshelf and he shows the countless books that he's read in order to get him the new Lamborghini. So interesting phenomenon.
Well, accidents don't happen, right? So all of that knowledge is gone into producing that.
No, he was at here's me doing a big name drop, right?
Yeah.
I was at a party at Arnold Schwarzenegger's house, and he rolled up in a Lamborghini. So Ty Lopez. There was only 50 of us, so I got to spend a little bit of time with Ty, and he's the real deal. Like people said, he hired the Lamborghini. Well, I guess he hired a different one to come to that party then, because he was there in that as well. So no, good dude, interesting phenomena, and like him or hate him, he has done what very few can do.
Yeah.
And that's profitably put a marketing piece out using the right words so that he can scale that exponentially to be a global break-even phenomena, thus making himself a brand and famous.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be now able to drop names. I've been at Glenn Twiddle's events. So.
Oh, mate, I'm but a student, and mate, you're here as the master, certainly. So I do have some questions that my crew put to us. So we have a very specific bunch of guys here with a very specific purpose, but what's the biggest mistake you've seen people make when they're trying to sell through the written word, the spoken word, basically copywriting and how that reflects in the sales world?
Look, I think this cuts across all demographics, all industries. It's underestimating the difficulty of the task of selling. And
certainly with these guys in real estate,
tenfold. Yeah. They know all about that, right? But I do think you need to really understand this, because it's not so much about you, it's about them out there who you're trying to sell to. Because you think about it, Glenn, what did you get up this morning and think about? You go, gee whiz, I've got to get there on time.
Have we got the right rating on this? Is a PG-rated show? And you see the beautiful woman I woke up next to.
The nice Glenn Twiddle, not the other Glenn Twiddle. So it was, I hope the traffic's okay. I've got to get there on time. I've got to set things up. At some point, Glenn, you thought about it, right? You thought of your immediate problems, right? And let's not go there, Glenn. We're trying to be professional. You thought of your immediate problems in your day, right? That's what was in your mind. You didn't get.
You got to edit this out. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to edit it out because it's true.
What was the question? I even forget.
The biggest problem in copywriting and sales. And you were going to say what was the immediate. I tell you, if the right message came along in the right media, I was sold at 3 o'clock this morning. I can promise you.
We're not talking about receptive markets, right? Okay. So, it's underestimating that, because we get up and think about our own problems. And I got up and thought about, gee whiz, I've got to get there on time. I've got the traffic to be on time. All of those things. Am I going to be able to pay the bills? The kids at school, this annoying staff member. They're all the problems that all of us have. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that what we try and do as business owners is show up and overcome all that stuff going on in all of our heads. And that's why we think, if we just show up and we're dressed nicely and we've got a good brand and all those sorts of things, that's, why aren't they buying off me?
Yeah.
And so we always underestimate just how hard it is to cut through that busyness of people's lives, and I think it's even more so today.
Yeah.
With social media and all those sorts of things, it's really hard, it's challenging to cut through, and we often just think, well, if I just turn up, then bang, it's going to be easy. And that's never the case.
Definitely.
That is never the case.
Certainly, like back when I first entered business, and that's maybe 20 years ago or something, and I got serious about it maybe 10 years ago, probably about the time when I started learning from you. Yeah. But back 20 years ago, literally there was radio, TV, newspaper and magazines. And that's kind of all you did, is you put a message in that. And sometimes I remember you'd see basically business cards in the local paper. And you'd say, I'm a plumber and there's the plumbing contact details and whatever. But now when you look at the sheer multitude of media, I mean, you could have a billboard on the Sunshine Coast driving down from where you came from down to here in Brisbane. And people are sitting there driving, staring at their phones, and you never know what app they're looking at on their phones and things. There's just so many media to contend with now. Can you be the master of them all and be on all of them? Because I futilely try and just be everywhere. And man, it is a full-time job to be omnipresent on all devices.
Yeah. I think what is key, though, is learning the foundations and the principles and then applying them to the different media where your market is. It's probably futile trying to be all things to all people, to be all omnipresent in all media. Find out what works for you and apply those foundations and those principles. That is the key.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So, all right, so the next question I got in, okay, this is good. They're getting into the nitty gritty. See, they're putting you under the pump. What's a great, there you go. So, what's the best headline in the world? That's effectively what this person is saying. But what's a good headline tip? Because I know that we can't answer this question, which is what's the greatest headline you've ever seen? If you've got a good answer to that, wonderful. But what I would say is, how can we write better headlines?
Yeah.
What's a good headline
So
tip?
there's probably two things. Think of it like this. So we've got an audience here, Glenn, the camera probably can't see. If I lean over and just tell you a bit of a secret, and I talk really long.
Yeah, what I really think of these bastards, right?
How do you make $1 million?
That's $1 million tip. What you just whispered to me. $1 million guaranteed. See. So what have you just done there? Tongue planted firmly in cheek.
Yeah. So all the people in the audience tend to go, what did they say? So there's that element of curiosity.
Yep.
The other thing too, if you think about if you're walking along the street and you see a group of people standing there looking up into the sky pointing, what do you do?
Have you ever seen some of those videos where someone will do that as a goof and by the end of it, everyone's looking up wondering what it is and no one knows what it is. There's nothing up there.
But the key thing is human beings are curious, right? So curiosity in a headline to get them to look further is really important, but you need to have curiosity with a benefit. A benefit for them based on the market. But curiosity is a big thing because, we are driven by it. So, as soon as we lower our voice and talk about it, they're going, what's going on?
Yeah.
And so think in terms of human beings. We are curious, so how in your market can you make them curious to stop them in their tracks?
Yeah, okay.
That's the key thing.
What's a good example of that?
Well, I love John Carlton's famous headline of the one-legged golfer.
Okay.
Secrets.
What was the headline?
Quoting it, secrets of a one-legged golfer reveal how you can slash, 10 yards off eliminate your slices and hooks, add 10 yards to your drives, etc., etc., etc.
Right. So a benefit, and what you're wondering is, how the frickin' hell can it do it with one leg?
There you
even
go.
do it. Okay,
There
so
you
there's
go.
curiosity and some benefit-driven stuff.
Yeah. So
wow. Okay.
that's probably my all-time favourite headline to answer your question.
Okay. There you go. So
and John Carlton, absolute genius. He's another one we didn't mention before.
Well, he did a co-thing with. Here's the thing with Dan Kennedy. I've listened to so much Dan Kennedy as my copywriting guy, one of my main guys.
Yeah.
He did a launch with John Carlton, a product recently. I think it was called Make 'em Buy or something. It was $2,000.
Yes.
I bought it, and I'm a good student. I actually listen to things I buy.
Yeah.
That one in particular, I haven't gotten around to yet. It's been a couple of years, and I'm still happy with my purchase because I learnt as much from the copywriting of the way they sold me. Their launch was a $2,000 class in and of itself. The product was the bonus.
Yeah.
Because I kept the emails that got me.
Yeah.
I kept the videos that got me. It was a masterclass. So John Carlton was the co-guy. Imagine that, John Carlton and Dan Kennedy doing the same course.
You don't want to be in a market against those guys, right?
All right. So, okay. The question here is, do you see any conversion killers these days? So to break that down to kind of everyday parlance, what's getting in the way of having a customer curious and converting them to money in a bank account?
Yeah, many things. The biggest one I see though is, and I see this again across many industries, is confused people do nothing. So if you confuse them in your sales message, if you confuse them in terms of what you want them to do from here, get to here, if that's confusing, it's over. So you've got to make sure that you are very, very clear about how you're getting people from one point to the other, because you think of yourself, well, Glenn, here's water, here's cordial, here's Coke, here's gin, pick one to have a drink from to satisfy your thirst. Your mind's going, you're confused. So
I'm leaning one way.
I know which one you would pick, right? But I'm just talking about the normal people, right? Normal people. If there's too many things going on, then you get confused and you go,
Well, in the case in point, like literally 3 days ago or something was Black Friday. And there are products in my email inbox. I've never thought about this till now. There's a couple of products in my inbox that I want, and my intention was to get it. Well, it's getting on to whatever day it is now. I don't know if the specials are even there.
Yeah.
They may have lost a sale because of the sheer overwhelming confusion of the Black Friday madness.
And see what your mind did. I'll leave it for later and come back to it. And what we always do, we know you never come back, And that's what we think, just if I turn up and, I've got a good message and so forth, people will want to buy, But if you don't step it out and make it crystal clear for them, confusion sets in, confusion causes a pause in them,
That's
it's
what
over.
it did to me. And I
Yeah.
tell you, and I've been told and described by many of my mentors as the implementation guy.
You
Like,
are.
I'm the guy who does
you,
stuff.
You are the guru of implementation.
And so if I got confused by that madness, they had good messages, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I want their stuff.
Yeah.
And yet I never even thought that literally was overwhelming confusion that stopped me giving them their dollars that they deserved rightly. Wow.
And your mind goes,
Yeah. And it just paused.
Yeah.
It didn't say no to any of
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
In fact, it said yes.
yeah.
But my actions are that yes will fade to I'll get to that. We'll fade to a maybe
Yeah,
one
yeah.
day. We'll fade to eventually forgetting about
Forgotten about it, yeah.
Yeah.
And because that's the thing too, is everyone is very distracted today. And you think about it yourself. The phone rings. If you're at home, one of the kids falls over and hurt. You've got stuff going on, and so if you confuse them, you lose them. At the moment you've got them, you want to make sure it is crystal clear what you want them to do, because if not, all of those things you just mentioned are going to come into your mind, and boom, 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 and all of a sudden, I've got too many things on.
Yeah.
Who hasn't heard someone say, "I'm so busy"?
Yeah.
I'm so busy, and that means people's heads are
It's
going really
become a
fast.
bragging thing almost now.
Yes.
People convince themselves they are.
It's a badge of honour.
Because
Yeah.
that's exactly right. I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of it. How's things going? Oh, busy as
Yeah.
loving it. First world problems.
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
Too much.
yeah.
What used to be a strategy has become real. I do have more demand for me than supply of me. Great, it is a first world problem, but I wear it like a badge of honour.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right, so I know I've got to get you to be serving these crew, so I'm glad they've got a very easy question for you to ask here, Steve. Any good copywriting tips? No, they've worded it here. Any great wordsmithing tips? So in 30 seconds or less, Steve, how do you get a 10-year career to become as good a copywriter
No
as you?
problem. Look, I think a really important one today is speed of the read. We've just mentioned the busyness and so forth. So your sales message must be able to be conveyed really quickly, and you do that with shorter sentences, smaller words.
I'm in trouble.
So it reads really quickly.
Okay.
And I guess the other thing too is it must be smooth enough so that you don't, the reader doesn't trip up. Because if they've got to trip up and go back and they'll get sick of doing that and they're gone.
Ah, okay.
So it has to be smooth all the way through. One way you can do that is to read your copy out loud before you hit send or publish or whatever it might be.
I really shouldn't follow your tips. I followed many of your tips. The one that my favourite of yours was write how you talk.
Yeah.
Literally, my book, wherever it is, I gave my last copy away this morning. It was just literally brain dump, send to printer.
Yeah.
That is literally what it was. So certainly perhaps maybe that's a way I get some smoothness, is that it sounds like a conversation, not like with a lot of therefores and where arts and all of that stuff.
That's a really important point you make, because sales is a one-on-one conversation with whoever it is. Now, you might have 1,000 people listening to you, watching you, reading you, but it's still at any one time there's only you and one person, right? So talking in their language, the language of the market, but talking conversationally is really important, because, oh, Glenn, how would you like to come to a lovely 3-day copywriting course where I will teach you all of the great wordsmithing techniques, as opposed to, hey, Glenn, I've got some really cool tips that are going to teach you how to make $1 million. Do you want to come to my place for a couple of days?
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, so it's...
And have been.
Yeah.
Agreed 100%. I've sort of built whilst I don't profess to be a master, what I've learned has put millions of dollars in my bank account, which is lovely. Spent it all as well. I love it that I've got to do the wealth creation thing so I can keep some of it. But I have done what you've said and put the millions in. I just then go and do crazy shit and spend the millions. But I have a good time doing it. So it's been a blast.
Yeah.
Well, mate, I just want to say thanks to you for hanging with this crew here today, for sharing us a little bit of time with the camera so guys can find Steve Plummer, grab his courses. I've been to his website, and right now, I don't know when you're seeing this, but I hope it stays there for a period of time, because right now you can go to his website and get a free course. There's another principle that I'm sure we'll be talking about today. If you lower the barrier to entry, give before you ask for anything, which is what you're exactly doing right now at your website. So check him out, Steve Plummer. Grab yourself some free stuff and let him prove that he's the man to you by teaching you something before you give him a dime, right? So
Very smart of you, sir. You walk your talk, and that's why you're here today to help us out.
Thank you,
Thanks
Mr.
again,
Twiddle.
my man.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so there's another Total Success interview. Check that guy out, huh? He's as good as they get in the field of creating and delivering compelling words with a specific reason to sell, and he's hired by the greatest in the country, including me here today. So not that I'm the greatest by any means, but yeah, we have some fun. All right, we got work to do. So until next time, guys, bye for now. Wow. Well, there you go. Hope you liked the episode. If you liked that, then what you need to do is you need to subscribe. You need to get more of this craziness because we got more are coming. I'm never standing still, and we've got so many more guests. We've got so many more strategies, more out-of-the-box thinking. So if you haven't subscribed, literally, you're like throwing away thousands of dollars. Because I tell you, if you haven't subscribed, you don't come back. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to find you, I'm going to market to you, and I'm going to charge you for the very stuff that on this podcast we give away for free. So whack that subscribe button on whatever your favourite podcast weapon of destruction is, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.